Hi everybody, Daphne again, and today we're finally on part 3 of our Jason Voorhees fan art that we're finally going to get coloring. But before we start doing that, what I want to do first is I want to erase the pencils off of the artwork now that we have our piece inked. Sometimes some people might have the inclination to color first and then erase the pencils, but depending on what medium you're using for coloring, a lot of times you cannot erase the pencils after you've laid down pigment. So it's always, if you want a clean piece, it's always best to erase your pencils before you start coloring, unless that's an effect that you want to add to your piece. Sometimes even I'm just in the mood of seeing like keeping the rough pencils in a colored piece for effect. Okay, so now our piece is erased, it's clean, and now it's ready for us to lay down color. Okay, so now what we're going to start doing is that we're not going to start coloring all willy-nilly on the piece. What we want to do first is we want to choose the colors that we want to use first. So these are my color charts. I have it on paper that's the same as the piece is on, and I also have just another color chart of mostly just for the grays, which didn't fit on my other color chart. So what we're going to do is we're going to start deciding which colors for the flat base we're going to choose to put on our piece. Another thing that I'm going to use to pick my colors is a previous piece that I did that also has Jason Voorhees in it. So I did this at a previous convention. And what I want to do is I want to use pretty much the same colors that I used here on this piece. So we're going to use that also as our color chart reference. Okay, so now that I have my colors, my color charts, and my color reference, I'm going to start taking out the markers that I'm going to need to put in my flats. Now this makes it easy to do is for me to match up the colors that I want, because this is the same paper as this. So the colors are going to be the same, looking the same as they are on here. So I'm going to use that to pick out my colors. All right, so I think I got everything. And these are going to be my markers for flats. Okay, so I'm sure some of you had expected me to pull out Copics. No, I've already tried Copics, and my opinion of it is that they're way too expensive and way overrated for what they do. You know, for me, Prismacolors are less expensive. They're easier for me to replace. I can always find Prismacolors on sale, so, and I don't have to worry about parts and refills. So these are the tools that I prefer. Just because a tool is trendy or popular doesn't mean it's the best tool for the job. So choose a tool that you want to use, that you feel is right for you, not because, oh, everybody's using it, so it must be what I have to use. No, it's really up to you as to what you want to use on a piece. And for me, Prismacolors do the job, so that's what I'm going to use. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to start putting the flats on my piece. With lighter colors, especially, what you want to do, depending on what you use to ink, you want to be careful with your black outlines. Lighter colors, for some reason, they love to catch the ink and smear it. So just be careful with that. Just be aware of that when you're coloring. So now we have our flats done. Now what we're going to do is we're going to choose the colors that we're going to use for the shading. It's the same process we used before. We're going to use our charts and we're going to use our reference piece to pick the colors that we want. I might change a couple of colors here and there just to give me a different effect, but pretty much I'm going to try to stick with the same colors that I have on the reference piece. Now that I have my colors for my second layer, I can start putting in the shading. As you can see from my reference piece, I'm not a blending kind of person when it comes to the characters. I prefer a more cell shading type of coloring, so that's what I'm going to do. Although, you can color your pieces however you want, depending on the technique that you want to get from the piece. But in my case, I'm doing simple cell shading on my final piece. And here's what Jason looks like shaded. So now we're at the fun part. And by fun, I mean this is where you can either finish your piece or completely wreck it and have to do it all over again, which is doing the background. So luckily for the background that I want for this piece is the same background that I have for my reference piece. So at least this way I know what colors I want to use, but I still want to test them out first on a scrap piece of paper to make sure they blend correctly before I commit them to my final artwork. So what we want to do is we want to take a scrap piece of paper similar to the paper that we're using for our artwork, and we want to test the colors that we're going to use to make sure they blend into each other correctly. Now, I have to admit, this is probably where Copics are better than Prismacolors at this, because Prismacolors blend, they don't blend very well. They dry very quickly, so they have no real blending capability, while Copic inks, uh, you can blend everything into one another and they'll give you that effect. But like I said before, it's not really that big of a deal for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and test out my colors first to make sure that they give me the effect that I want. So as you can see, the colors are pretty separated. They, like I said before, they don't blend very well. So when I actually do the effect on the piece, what I have to do is make sure that I keep the markers wet as I blend. So I'm going to be using a couple of markers at the same time, scrubbing into each other to get that wet on wet effect. But like I said, it's not going to be as clean as if you were using inks or Copics or watercolors, but this is pretty much what I'm going for right now. So far, so good. By keeping the markers wet and similar in tone to each other, I was able to create the blending effect that I'm looking for. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue with the rest of the effect with the other colors until I finish the background. And we're almost done. Uh, of course, you're probably thinking, what do you mean almost? So as you can see, the background worked out really well. It looks really good. So now I'm going to do is I'm going to put my little finishing touches using a white gel pen. And that's it. So now I'm just going to put all this to the side. And here is our completed Jason Voorhees fan art. So that brings us to the end of our three-part series. And I hope you enjoyed this video, or and found it informative. I hope you liked the format that I was trying with this. I know that I originally said that it was like real time, but in the end, it seemed a little impractical to actually expect people to sit through a 2-hour coloring video in real time. So I hope you like the format of speeding up through the places where it could be sped up, but still have relevant information that you could use. So thumbs up if you want to see more videos like this. Like and subscribe, comment down below if there's more videos you want to see, like what kind of art videos and art demos you want to see. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye! And here is my art pouch that I usually keep in my purse. I'm going to put a link above to another